Hi, this is Richard Hatchett and I'm the Senior Nurse Editor for RCNi, and I'm also a registered nurse and for many years was a nurse tutor and marker in the university sector. Now, you've clicked on this video because you're looking for tips to improve academic essay writing, and it might be that you haven't written an essay for a while, or this is the first time you've written an essay in the university, an academic essay, or maybe you've got a mark back that was lower than you expected and you want to improve that. So hopefully there's something here for everyone. The first thing I would say to you is, there are a lot of tips I can give you, so this is just a selection, and these have been created in partnership with the Nursing Standard authors and reviewers. So do look wider than this video, obviously, to get further tips. Okay, the first thing I would say to you is, and it's good news, is there are lots of resources available now to help you in academic essay writing. So the first thing I would say to you is, do get a study skills book if you can. It doesn't have to be connected to nursing, just a general study skills book. You can get them from online bookstores or in a bookshop, from the university library or from the Learning Resource Centre if you have one. These are excellent because the good ones will have a chapter in them on academic essay writing or a large section dedicated to that. And if you read that, that will help you with presentation, structure, what should be in there, for example, an introduction, a main body, a conclusion. It will help you with critical writing, referencing and so forth. So I've always found those invaluable. So a good study skills book. As said, you can get those from the university library or if you've got one, a Learning Resource Centre. And while you're there, see what else is available. Online, help sheets, maybe tutorials, short classes and so forth. See what's available to improve your academic essay writing style, because that's what they're there for. Talk to your tutor. Say to them that you're worried about your essay writing. How can that be improved? They're there to help you. They will have helped you a little bit so far as well. But do remember, you can't have tutorial after tutorial. They're always time restricted. So really make the most of those tutorials. Go along with an objective in mind. Talk to the tutor. Be open to constructive criticism. Look at their feedback. Hear it both verbally and written. And really just work with them to improve those essay writing skills. And remember as well, take along a phone or an iPad or a piece of paper and a pen and make notes. Don't try and remember it all, because then you can look back at those notes and that will help you improve your essay writing as well. Okay, let's look at some specifics now. One of the big things to say to you is take time to write your essay. Don't do the whole module or unit and leave it to the last few days to do the essay. There are lots of reasons for that. One of the big ones is you need to take time to go through and absorb your essay. By that I mean checking it through for spelling errors, for grammar, to check you've included everything from the assignment criteria, to go through your referencing, because that always takes longer than you think. So you do need to take time to do that rather than writing everything at the last minute. One of the key reasons to take time is we need to develop you as a critical writer, okay, rather than as a descriptive writer. Now, when I say to you critical writing, critiquing, critical analysis, critical evaluation, if you're thinking, I don't really know what he's talking about, then we've got a learning need. And so you need to look in your study skills book, go to the library, talk to the staff, talk to your tutor about writing critically. Because in nursing, we want to develop you as a critical thinker, and that's reflected in your critical writing. A descriptive writer is somebody who will take a pile of articles or books and they'll just copy things out of that and they'll re-edit them and put them in the essay. Now, that might be grammatically well written, it might be factually correct, but it's not critiquing it. It's not critical writing. And that's what takes time to develop. That's why I'm talking about time. A critical writer will tease apart an issue, will get under the skin of it and really look at it from different angles. So, for example, if we're looking at, let's think, myocardial infarction, management of a myocardial infarction, a descriptive writer will write down the presentation, the signs and symptoms, the treatment, the nursing intervention, all very factually. That's okay, and you'll get marks for that. But a critical writer will look at the advantages and disadvantages of those interventions, the pros and the cons, the strengths and the weaknesses. Where's the evidence base? Is the evidence base strong? Where's it missing? Where are we lacking the research? Where do we need to do more research? They'll compare and contrast. They'll look at the impact on the nursing workforce, on the patient, of course. So they're really looking around that, and they're drawing all that from the literature, a bit like a detective looking all the way around. So we need to develop you as a critical writer, and that takes time. So do look up critical writing in your resources as well. It's very important to read your module handbook or your unit guide from beginning to end. But there are some areas I particularly want you to focus in on. And these are the learning outcomes or the key objectives or the objectives. Sometimes they're called different things. And these are usually put in bullet point form. And they are the things you need to achieve to pass the module. So you need to read those. And some, if not all of those, will be required to be reflected in your essay. So do read the learning outcomes or the objectives or key objectives. Make sure you read the assignment criteria carefully and include everything that they say you need to do in your essay. Tick it off at the end when you finish your essay, check everything's there. Because if it isn't there, you won't get marks for it. So follow the assignment criteria to the letter. Read the marking criteria or the marking grid. This should be available to you. If not, you must ask for it, because the marker will have that alongside them so you can see what they're looking for. Most marking grids, marking criteria, are weighted, W-E-I-G-H-T-E-D, and that means they will tell you how many marks they're giving for certain elements or sections within the essay. For example, 5% for introduction, or 10% for the conclusion, or 40 or 50% for the main body with critical writing, etc. So it's very important to see where you need to put most of your effort, because if it's only 5% for the introduction, you don't need to give too many words for that or spend too much time on that. But if you're getting 50 or 60% for something else, you really need to go to town on those areas. So looking at those three particular areas in the module handbook and the unit guide are very important. Let's look now at the essay itself. Presentation is critical. That's because in your professional life as a qualified nurse, you're going to be doing a lot of writing. And that writing might be patient notes, care plans, documents, reports, and so forth, online, on paper. And it's very important that you get that right, often because many of those documents are legal documents. The patients need to be kept safe, so there should be no ambiguity, no confusion in what you're writing. And also when care is handed on, it wants to remain at the high standard that you're delivering. So you must make sure your record keeping and your writing is clear. And if you learn that within your essay, that's a transferable skill to documentation and record keeping. So it's important to present your essay well. Good spelling, no spelling errors, grammatically sound, referencing good, and so forth. A number of things there. I would always recommend asking a respected colleague or friend to proofread your essay when you've written it. They don't need to be an expert in nursing, but somebody who's good at English, grammar, spelling, and just say, could you read that and see if it makes sense? And are there any spelling errors or anything that I need to improve on? They're not commenting on the nursing per se. I mean, they might do if they're a nurse, nursing colleague. It's just the presentation. So that's very important. Follow the criteria and presentation in your assignment outline or criteria. It will tell you often what font to use, it's usually a 12, how to space the lines, often 1.5 or double spacing. They'll remind you to put a page number, even if they don't put a page number on, because the marker can then give feedback related to a specific area within the essay. They can't do that so easily if there's no page numbers. So follow the style exactly as they say in the assignment criteria and produce a polished piece of work. Just finally, I'm going to look at some specific areas within your essay. Always put an introduction in your essay. Even if they don't mention that or you don't get any marks, put an introduction in. It doesn't have to be long, round about half a page, and it just sets the scene. You can begin that with, this essay will, then you look at your assignment criteria, and it might say you're required to critically explore. If it says that, you say this essay will critically explore. Then you explain what you're going to look at. The care of a patient with a myocardial infarction or health promotion model or whatever you're looking at. Just outline it. Provide some facts and figures, some demographics, maybe the number of patients in the UK with myocardial infarction. The impact of this, don't go too overboard, it's just a paragraph. It just sets the scene and shows the importance of the topic. And then make sure you outline what you're going to look at in your essay. Then the marker knows where this essay is progressing. When you finish the essay, go back to the introduction and tweak it, or just check that what you said you'll do, you've actually done in the main body. In the main body, we want you to develop as a critical writer, and you'll be looking at 3 or 4 themes within the main body. You can't look at everything. If you're worried that you're going to miss something out, look at your assignment criteria as to what you need to include, or talk to your tutor. You may want to show them an essay plan and so forth. The conclusion should always be there. It should be 10% of an essay. That's generally what people say. So about 300 or 400 words, around about half a page. The top tip on a conclusion is don't put anything new in it. A conclusion is just summing things up. I always recommend that students start with, in conclusion, this essay has, and you outline what you've done. What were your key points? What were your key findings when you did this essay from the literature? So with a myocardial infarction, you might be summing up that care has to be multidisciplinary, that it's time related, that you have to act promptly, the current treatments, the evidence base, etc. But keep it short. It's just standing back and concluding. No new material in a conclusion. It's likely you will get some marks for a conclusion. And finally, referencing. Okay, there's quite a bit to say on referencing, as you probably know. The first thing is you must follow the style they give you, not an adaptation of your own or from a different college or university. You must follow their referencing style. In nursing, we tend to use the Harvard style, which is where the surname of the first author in the article or the chapter and the date of publication appears in the main body of the essay. Then alphabetically, we see the full reference list at the end of the essay. Now, the Harvard style does vary. There is a standard Harvard style, but usually between universities, it will vary. So the top tip there is get the help sheet or online and follow the style to the letter. Exactly where they say put the brackets, the commas, the full stops, you must follow the style. Some of the most common errors I see in referencing are that a reference will appear in the essay but not in the list, or in the list and not in the essay. So the way to get around that is when the essay is finished, get it up on the screen and go to your search or find box and put the surname in of the author, the first author, and check when you're pressing return that it flashes up in the main body and in the reference list. If it doesn't, something's wrong. It must be obviously in the main body and in the reference list. A further tip is I sometimes put the first bit of the surname in. So my surname is Hatchett, Hatchett. So I would just put in Hatch, because if I've misspelt it somewhere else in the essay, maybe left a T off the end, it will pick that up. But that's a more detailed tip. Basically, you need to check that the reference is in the essay and in the list. Check that surnames are spelt correctly. Check accuracy, really. Check that dates are the same. You haven't got 2019 for this author in the main body and 2020 in the list. Check those dates. Check it all very, very carefully. It does take time. I'm often asked how many references should be in an essay. There are various answers for this, so you need to talk to your tutor. Some will say 10 references for every 1,000 words. So in a 3,500 word essay, around about 30 to 35 references. Others will say it takes as many references to make the point. I think everybody would agree you shouldn't have too few or too many. If you're down at about 10 or 15 references for a 3,500 word essay, you're not really accessing enough material to get good marks. Whereas if you put 70 or 80 references, it looks impressive, but are you really only skirting over the surface? So do check that very carefully. Some final tips I can give you is stick to the word count. That's very important. You're likely to be penalised if you go over or maybe under on the word count. The other thing I'm often asked is, well, what does the word count include? That again varies. It might include the reference list, it might not. It might include the tables and figures, it might not. You need to find that out so you're sticking safely to the word limit. You cannot afford to go over, because in many ways you're giving other people a disadvantage because you're exploring things with more words. And it's important again because it's good to improve your essay writing skills, because when you do reports and documents, those might be limited in space and in wordage as well. So stick to the word limit. It's very important, but find out what that word limit includes. So those are just some top tips I can give you. I hope they're of use. Remember to go out and see what other resources are available for you, and good luck in developing your essay writing skills.